So in this video, I'll be taking you through the items which were recovered by the police during the search of Pat Tate's home address on the day the bodies of Tate, Tucker and Rolfe were discovered. And more importantly, an item which was apparently absent from the Gordon Road property. Take a listen to the following. The following statement is from P.J. Bridge, dated the 13th of December 1995. On Thursday the 7th of December 95, I was on duty when I went in company with other officers to 49 Gordon Road, Pitsea, Essex. These premises were the home address of Mr. Patrick Tate. Between 15:30 hours and 18:55 hours that same day, I conducted a search of the premises. While searching a waxed jacket, which was in the wardrobe of the main bedroom, I found the following property. £660 made up of £20 banknotes. A plastic bag containing £6,000. This was made up of £5,000 in £20 banknotes and £1,000 in £50 banknotes. From the top of the cupboard in the kitchen, I found a bag containing pink coloured tablets and a box of drugs marked Viramone. I took possession of the above listed items and handed them to DC 543 Mayo, who was performing the duty of exhibits officer at the premises. The following statement is from Colin Jack Elsgood, dated the 9th of December 1995. About 1600 hours on Friday the 8th of December 95, I was on duty when I attended 49 Gordon Road, Pitsea, in order to conduct a weapons search. Prior to gaining entry to the bungalow, I was carrying out a cursory search of the rear garden when I saw a vent about 6 inches up an external chimney wall. Inside the vent, I saw a rolled up carrier bag blocking the hole. On touching it, I felt it contained something substantial and requested a scenes of crime officer to attend. At about 16:20 hours, DC Hilton attended, and after photographing the location, I removed the bag which I now felt contained a handgun. On opening the bag, I saw it was a silver 9mm revolver that was loaded with 9 rounds of ammunition. I can produce this firearm and ammunition as my exhibit reference CJE/1. I then handed possession of the firearm CJE/1 to DC Hilton. So what we need to do now is look at the police statement given by Liz Fletcher. Now, Liz Fletcher was Pat Tate's then girlfriend. They were very close. She would stay over pretty much every night at 49 Gordon Road during the week. These two had a close relationship up until Pat Tate's death. And there's something in this statement here which is incredibly important. Now, I've discussed some of this statement before, and we'll just go through it very briefly, and then I'll get to the point that I wish to raise in this particular video. So it states the following here. On Friday the 8th of the 12th, 95 at South Woodham Ferrers Police Station, I took a statement from Elizabeth Ann Fletcher, during which Elizabeth informs me that on Tuesday the 5th of the 12th, 95, in the early evening, Pat received a phone call on his mobile phone. So this is the day before they're killed, the 5th. She didn't hear the conversation and it was very short, but afterwards Pat was really happy and said to Elizabeth, "I'm alright now." She said Pat had been stressed up lately. Craig and Tony then came round to Pat's home where they had a conversation in the kitchen, which she says she did not hear. They then left and Pat told Elizabeth that she had to leave and that he was going away for a couple of days and that he would contact her. Elizabeth would not allow the above to be written in her statement. Okay, now it's this next part which is incredibly important. Take a listen to the following. She asked about the money in Pat's house, which she said was in a duty-free bag. She says there was about £20,000 in notes and that £1,000 Pat was giving her for a flat. And again, keep in mind here that this is an individual who stays over 49 Gordon Road 5 nights a week. She's there the evening before Tate is murdered. She speaks to Tate on the 6th, the day that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. She went over to Holland to recover the money from the dud cannabis deal. She knows what Tate is getting up to some degree. And she's certain here that there's a duty-free bag with £20,000 thereabouts. Now, some people will say, well, I'm sure Tate didn't have £20,000 just lying around the property of 49 Gordon Road. But think about this. Think about what the police have actually recovered the day the bodies were found. £660, £6,000 and £500, totalling £7,160. So there's two options, isn't there? Either this £7,160 formed part of that £20,000, in which case there's £13,000 missing, or there's a bag somewhere, a duty-free bag, with £20,000 separate. So Tate either had £20,000, of which £7,000 was recovered, or there's £27,160, but the £20,000 is missing. However you cut it, there's a large, substantial amount of money missing from 49 Gordon Road. So what are the possibilities? Either Lizzie Fletcher has massively overestimated what Tate actually had, but then there's a massive difference, isn't there, between 7,000 and 20,000. Could she make that mistake? Probably not. The second option is that the police slipped this into their back pocket during the police search. Again, unlikely, but not impossible. Or the third option is that Tate had that money with him on the evening that they were killed. Remember what was found in the Range Rover, the empty black head bag. So many people have said, why was there an empty black head bag in the Range Rover? Was there drugs in it? Was there some sort of commodity, a weapon, money? Why would you have an empty black head bag found in that Range Rover? And remember, they've been refunded at this point for the dud cannabis deal. There's £60,000 in play here somewhere. £20,000 from Tucker, £7,000 from Rolfe, and the rest of the money, the bulk of it, made up by Tate and a fourth investor called Barry Dorman. So could it be that what we're told here about Tucker, Tate and Rolfe being lured to the bottom of Workhouse Lane, there's going to be a plane flying over, machine guns are going to be used to hold this drug firm up, they're going to make away with this cocaine or Charlie, whatever, and make good their escape? Is that just a little bit fanciful? Was it simply a deal which was due to take place and they got double-crossed? Remember what Darren Nichols told the police in his statement under oath. There was a deal. I got into the vehicle with Mick. He said they're going down to do a deal with Pat. No discussion about the plane flying over. No discussion about a hold-up or anything of the sort. Take a listen to the following. The pickup truck was a red Toyota. It was an M registration, I think. When I got in, I sat in the passenger seat. He said they were going down to do a deal with Pat, him and Jack. I said, where is Jack? He said, he'll be here in a minute. I don't recall anything else he said. Then I noticed Jack had pulled up behind us. Jack was in a beige Volkswagen. It was a B registration. I had sold the car to Michael Steele. So the statement from Darren Nichols, and again, we have to be very, very careful with anything Darren Nichols states, because clearly Darren Nichols is treading a very, very fine line between implicating himself but also having some information to provide to prove that he was there that evening. He's treading a very, very fine line. But it's an interesting point, isn't it? It's one that's worthy of mention. That Darren Nichols claims that Mick said to him, he got into the vehicle, Mick said, yeah, we're going down to do a deal with Pat, him and Jack. So could it be it's that simple? That Tucker, Tate and Rolfe are lured to the bottom of Workhouse Lane. There's a substantial amount of money in the black head bag. Tucker, Tate and Rolfe are killed and someone makes off with the cash. Usually with this type of crime, with like a triple murder or any sort of gang-related incident, it's usually about money, isn't it? It's not usually about some convoluted love triangle with Michael Steele, Sarah Saunders and Pat Tate and this, that and the other. I mean, that has been put forward as some kind of motive for this triple murder. That Michael Steele was jealous of Pat. He actually really wanted to be with Sarah. But think about this. Sarah, during this time, already had a separate boyfriend, which Michael Steele knew about. So that idea, that whole motive, that part of the motive, doesn't make any sense at all. Also think about this from Michael Steele's perspective. And again, these videos aren't to create the impression that someone's guilty or innocent. It's just looking at all the possibilities here. But think about this. Michael Steele goes to Holland. They're trying to return the money. They're trying to get the money back from the dud cannabis fiasco. Rolfe, Tucker and Tate are furious about what's taken place. Steele goes over there. He gets their money back for them. But during that trip, Michael Steele, by all accounts, approaches Pat Tate and says, look, I've got a big deal lined up. There's going to be a plane flying in. I'm going to be piloting the plane. I'll be in company with someone from a London drug firm. You and Tucker turn up and steal the goods. My thoughts have always been, then why is he returning the money? If he plans to kill Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, why is he giving them £60,000 back during that trip? That doesn't make any sense. For me, it would make more sense for Steele to say to Pat, look, keep hold of this money. Don't go paying it back. I've got a bigger deal. I've got a bigger deal where you make 5 times, 10 times the amount that we were going to make during this cannabis trip. Keep hold of the money. Bring it with you. I've been asked to fly in this consignment, this, that and the other. It would make more sense that they're bringing something with them on the night they're killed. To me, it's never made any sense that Steele goes across to Holland, gives them back £60,000, but during that trip, he's planning to kill them. Why not keep the money? Why repay the money? Why give the money back if your intention during that trip is to kill Tucker, Tate and Rolfe? Now, could it have gone, as I say, something like, look, keep hold of the money, don't go paying it back yet, because I've been asked to do this, I've been asked to do that. And as I've said in previous videos, I've never been convinced that Michael Steele and Jack Womes actually pulled the trigger. Were they a smaller part of something bigger? Was that the whole ruse the entire time? Look, get them down there, just say that you've got another deal taking place. Just say that you're going to be the pilot and we'll be down there waiting. In which case, it solves 2 issues, doesn't it? They bring with them £60,000 and Tucker, Tate and Rolfe are killed. I just don't see why he's paid the money back on the continent when the plan during that period was to kill them. It would make more sense to say, we've got a new deal coming up, bring the money with you. In that case, they make £60,000 and Tucker, Tate and Rolfe are murdered. Also factor in that there's a high potential here that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were unarmed on the evening they were killed. Now, some people will say, no, well, of course they weren't. They had their weapons taken by the killers and this, that and the other. But we've got nothing, evidentially speaking, to back that up as a fact. We have actually quite a lot of evidence to prove the opposite. We have the submachine gun, which was found at the Mill Green address. They didn't take that with them. We also had the handgun found in Pat Tate's garden. They didn't take that with them. So there's evidence to suggest that they weren't armed. And again, ask yourselves, why would that be? It's because they're meeting someone, isn't it? They're meeting someone who they trust, who they've dealt with before. And if this was some kind of ruse, some kind of deal, oh, I'm flying the stuff in from Holland, Jack's going to show you where we're going, this, that and the other, it makes sense, doesn't it, that they're not armed. They've dealt with this sum of money before, they've been refunded by Steele on the continent, they trust this individual, they've done deals with this individual in the past. There'd be no reason, would there, for Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to be armed if they were going down to meet Michael Steele. There wouldn't be a need. Factor in then what happens on the 5th. And this really sticks out to me, that there's definitely something going on the day and the evening before Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed. So at 17:05, the mystery phone call from the halfway house payphone to Pat Tate. Lizzie Fletcher in her statement states that Pat received a phone call in the early evening on December the 5th and his attitude completely changed. Oh yeah, he was really stressed out, he was really he was in a bad mood, and then he got this phone call, this short phone call, and his attitude completely changes. Oh, I'm fine now, I'm alright. He rings up Tucker. Tucker rings back Tate. Tate's again on the phone to Tucker. Tate rings Rolfe. Tucker's ringing Rolfe. Tate rings Rolfe's landline. And Tucker and Rolfe turn up at Tate's property. Liz is told to get lost, she's kicked out, and Tucker, Tate and Rolfe then go off into the night. This is the day or the evening before they're killed. Now, interestingly, an hour after that phone call, an hour after the mystery phone call from the halfway house at 17:05, at 18:07, Jack Womes is picked up on the Hockley transmitter. The same transmitter he's picked up the following evening when he's most likely in Rettendon. So an hour after the mystery phone call, 18:07, Womes is potentially in the Rettendon area phoning Michael Steele. Tate's then ringing Tucker on his mobile at 19:02. 19:14, Tucker's mobile calls back Tate's mobile. And then there's silence. They're not contacting each other. Tucker, Tate and Rolfe go silent because they're in each other's company, aren't they? Which then backs up what Lizzie Fletcher states the following day. Yeah, I spoke to Tate on the 6th. He was really pissed off. He was really unhappy. He said he'd been in a field all night with Tucker and he was muddy. As I've stated in a previous video, I believe this was the dry run by the killers just to check how this went down, or just to see what would happen if they tried to lure them to a secluded location. Would they turn up armed? Who would arrive in the Range Rover? Let's see if this is possible. Yes, they've turned up unarmed. Yes, they've turned up all together. We can go ahead the following evening. Why is Tate and Tucker in a field? Why are Tucker, Tate and Rolfe in a field the night before they're killed? And then on December the 6th, they're found down the bottom of a farm lane leading to open fields, open farmland. It's not rocket science, is it? It was a dry run, in my opinion. And then take a look at the telephone calls the day or the evening that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were murdered. You would expect, according to the prosecution's case, you would expect to see some kind of contact from Michael Steele to one of the three deceased. But there isn't any. There isn't any contact again from Michael Steele to Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. He's laying low. He's keeping his distance. Yet we do have the payphone at the Sorrel Horse Inn in Ipswich. These are the telephone calls which apparently call on the meet for later that evening. And this location is a stone's throw from Jack Wome's workplace. So on the face of it, again, looking and taking this at face value, if you were just to look at this evidence, you would think, well, hang on a minute, it's Jack Womes making these calls. And if that is the case, is there some truth in Donna Jagger's statement that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe truly believed that Michael Steele wasn't even in the country? He's gone over to Holland, he's gone over to get the drugs. Jack is in charge of finding the lane, finding the suitable location for Mick to fly over. He takes them out on the 5th. That's why he's in the Rettendon area, snooping around or doing whatever at around 6 p.m, because he then meets up with Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to look at some kind of field under the ruse that they're going to be looking for a field suitable for Michael Steele. In reality, that's just to check that they turn up. They all turn up together and they don't turn up armed. They've ticked that box. Okay, we're on for tomorrow. The phone call in the afternoon on the 6th. Mick's called me. He's coming over tonight. I found a field. Meet me here, meet me there at around 6 o'clock or later that evening. Is that what took place? Now, as I say, and as I've said in many videos, I don't believe that this just revolves around Darren Nichols, Michael Steele and Jack Womes. To me, they were used to get Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to a secluded location where other people would be waiting. And I've got actual evidence here that backs up this theory. But before we get into the weeds and start digging around in other individuals and putting that into the mix, I just want to clarify where we stand at the current time. So we've got Pat Tate. He is found dead alongside Craig Rolfe and Tony Tucker on the 7th. The police search Tate's property. They recover £7,160. Lizzie Fletcher turns around and says, well, where's the £20,000 in the duty-free bag? Because Tate was going to give me £1,000 of that for a flat. Lizzie is someone well connected with Tate, well connected with 49 Gordon Road. So we've got the possibility here, or two possibilities. Either the police slip that money into their back pocket, which I would say is quite unlikely, not impossible, but quite unlikely. Or the possibility here that Tate had that money with him on the night he was murdered. And what goes alongside that is the empty black head bag found inside the Range Rover. Now, also factor in here that we're not just talking about Tate, who has been refunded from the dud cannabis deal. Tucker has had £20,000 back. Craig has had supposedly £7,000 refunded. So there's the potential here for there to be more money taken with them than just Tate's £20,000. It could well be that Tucker actually invested back into this new deal along with Craig Rolfe. So it may not be that we're looking here at 20,000 or maybe 13,000 or whatever. It could be substantially more. But what stands out to me is the statement by Donna Jaggers. It makes me wonder if Steele took this money from them before the night of December the 6th. Again, all under the ruse that Steele was going to Holland. Again, listen to the following here. Craig told me that the money had been paid to Mickey Steele, who had taken it to Holland. The weather had changed and there was now snow on the ground. Craig told me this was causing them delay and they were waiting for it to clear. So what money here is Donna Jaggers referring to? Craig told me that the money had been paid to Mickey Steele. Now some people will say, well, that's the money that Mickey Steele is claiming to be paid by the London drug firm and this, that and the other. But could that explain why Tate is missing £20,000? Because he's given the money back to Steele. Steele has then created this ruse. I'm over in Holland. I'm going to get the stuff. Jack's going to show you where the field is. Craig told me that the money had been paid to Mickey Steele, who had taken it to Holland. Was money actually exchanged? Did Tate give him his money? Did Tate and Tucker and Rolfe pay into this or buy into this deal for Steele to go to Holland? Is that possible? Or did they have it with them on the evening of December 6th? That's really interesting. And again, I'm only picking this up having reread this part of Donna Jaggers' statement. Craig told me that the money had been paid to Mickey Steele, who had taken it to Holland. Was that Tate's money he's missing from 49 Gordon Road, alongside Tucker and Rolfe's contribution? Is that possible? Does that also explain why Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were most likely unarmed? Because they've dealt with Mickey Steele before, they've dealt with this level of money, they've dealt with deals based on this level of money previously. They've even been refunded by Michael Steele on the continent. They trust this individual. Think about this. Would they go down a farm track with Mickey Steele supposedly flying in some goods? Would they need to be armed in that circumstance? Probably not. Probably not, because they've dealt with him before. They've dealt with this level of money. They trust him. They trust this individual. They've gone out on the 5th to look at a potential field. They realise that Tucker, Tate and Rolfe are unarmed. They all turn up together. Okay, that's fine. We're on for tomorrow. The ruse is continued the following day by Jack phoning from near his workplace, making a telephone call. Mick's on his way over. We're on for this evening. Again, Michael Steele is nowhere to be seen in the lead up to Tucker, Tate and Rolfe's murders. He's not calling them. He's not using the payphones to call them. He's not calling them. He's not contacting them at all in the days leading up to their murders. He's completely absent, keeping his distance, keeping a low profile. And on the face of it here, when you just take the phone evidence at face value, it appears that it's Jack Womes who's organising events. Jack Womes appearing in Rettendon on December the 5th, or at least being connected to the transmitter which services that general area. Jack Womes and the phone calls the day of the murders from just literally a stone's throw from where he works, the payphone right next to G&T Commercials. On the face of it, it's Jack who's organising events. Is that because there is a ruse here, as stated in Donna Jaggers' statement, that Mick has gone abroad? The money's been paid to Mick. He's gone abroad. He's flying the stuff over. Was it that simple? In which case, Steele would get to keep the money and there's other people waiting down the lane. Let's get onto this idea that other people were involved, because I don't believe, as I say, this might sound crazy, but even after all these years, I don't believe that Michael Steele and Jack Womes are actually the gunmen. I truly believe that there is a third party involvement here. Their deal was, you get to keep the money, get Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to a secluded location. It's that simple. They've paid the money to Steele. He's pocketed the money. They believe he's in Holland. He's not. He's not in Holland, and they're lured down to the bottom of the lane where others are waiting. Now, why I believe this is so important is what Darren Nichols states in his earliest police interviews. His story, after this point, completely changes. But remember, even in his official statement under oath, he's talking about a deal here. Yeah, I met up with Mick. He said we're going down the lane, or we're going to do a deal with him, Pat and Jack. A deal, not a robbery, not some firing a machine gun at a plane flying in the air and this, that, the other, some Hollywood bullshit. A deal, a basic deal involving money. Money which potentially is missing from Pat Tate's property. So keep in mind as we go forward with these police interviews that Darren Nicholls' intention here is to distance himself but also at the same time implicate Wombs and Steele. The locations mentioned by Darren Nicholls are not verified by any third-party witnesses. We've got no one who said, oh yeah, I saw the Range Rover at the halfway house. I saw the Range Rover at the Hungry Horse pub. Everything is based on the word of Darren Nicholls. The phone evidence goes alongside Darren Nicholls' evidence, but it does not pinpoint locations. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Take a listen to what Darren Nicholls states in his police interviews. So long story short, I don't see Mick very often because I'm at work. So I'm working in Heathrow and I travel there every morning early and come home every night. So I'm coming home one night, I couldn't even tell you what night or what day he rings me up and he says, "Here, I've got to see you. I've got to have a chat with you." I said, "Okay." He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm just in the local pub." I said, "Because I'm on my way home from work. I start work at 4 a.m, you know. It's a long drive. I used to stop at this pub every night, the Cock at Rain." And he said, "I'm just going to go in the pub," he said. Well, don't go in the pub. Come and have a drink with me." And I said, "Well, I've got the blokes from work with me," I said. "I'll have a drink with them like I always do. Then I'll have a drink with you." He said, "Right then, meet me at Mark's Tate at the motorbike shop at Parkinson's." So I said, "Yeah, okay then." Because in the meantime, I'd actually bought an old motorbike off Fran's sister, prehistoric BSA thing. And I thought it wouldn't run because it needed a battery. So while I got up there fairly sharp, I was buying a battery before Mick turned up. And I got this battery and put it in my car or van. I don't even remember what I was driving. And then he said, "Come with me, we've got a few things to sort out." I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, I've got to sort things out with Pat," he said, "because it's gone far enough. We're going to have a talk about it," he said. "We're going to do another deal together. We've got this coke deal going down. We're all going to earn plenty of money, blah, blah." And I said, "What do you want me for then?" And he said, "Well, I was hoping that you could drop us off and pick us up later." So I said to Mick, "What, you going on your own?" And he said, "Oh, no. He said, no. He said, "I'm parking my motor at the halfway house at Rettendon." He said, "Jack will be there, Jack Wombs." And he said, "You drive us." He said, "No, hang on, let's get this right." He said, "I'm staying at the halfway house to have a drink with Pat and to make friends." I said, "Right." And he said, "What we're going to do is you'll take Jack to where we're going to have the deal," he said, "because we're having a deal." And I said, "Well, where's that?" And he said, "Jack will show you, don't worry." So Jack turns up, and Jack turns up in a car that I sold to Mick. Okay, Darren, which was a Volkswagen Passat. "Do you know the index of it, Darren?" "Oh, I haven't got a clue. I mean, it was B registration. I know that because I thought, cool, this is quite, I didn't pay a lot for it. It's quite a bargain, sort of £250. Okay, so where did you see Jack?" "Well, anyway, I'm talking to Mick in his Hilux, and Jack has come along." "And that's at Mark's Tate, is it, Darren?" "Yeah, but he hasn't stopped or got out or nothing." He said, "Right, we'll go now. Jack's with us." I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, he's behind us, in the car. And we're going along." And he said, "What I'm going to do is, we're all going to drive to the halfway house." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Right, I'm going to stay there. I'm going to meet him and we're going to have a deal." And he said, "We're going to come over to where you are and then there'll be some other blokes that we're going to sort of deal with and then you drive us back." He said, "I don't want to be at the deal in my car in case something goes wrong." He says, "All you've got to do is drop us off, then drive away." He said, "Park up somewhere. He'll ring you to come and pick us up when we're ready to go." "Yeah, but he hasn't stopped or got out or nothing," he said. "Right, we'll go now. Jack's with us." I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, he's behind us in the car. We're going along." And he said, "What we're going to do is, I'm going to drive to the halfway house." So this is Mick Steele saying this. I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Right, I'm staying there. I'm going to meet him," as in Pat Tate. "I'm going to meet him and we're going to have a deal," he said. "Then we're going to come over to where you are." So that would be Wombs and Steele in Rettendon. "Then there'll be some other blokes there. We're going to sort the deal out. And then you drive us back." He said, "I don't want to be at the deal in my car in case something goes wrong." So are we talking about here 3 sets of individuals? Wombs, Nicholls, Steele, Tucker, Tate, Rolfe, and then quote unquote some other blokes that we're going to sort the deal out and then you drive us back. We're going to come over to where you are, and then there'll be some other blokes there. We're going to sort the deal out, then you drive us back. Did Wombs and Steele lure Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to Rettendon, knowing that there was a third party who they were going to do some kind of deal with, and there was some sort of double cross, and then Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were killed by this mystery third party? Could there actually be some truth in what Nichols has said there? Again, I can't stop reading this. Then there'll be some other blokes there. We're going to sort the deal out, and then you drive us back. We're going to come over to where you are, meaning Rettendon, have a deal, he said. Then we're going to come over to where you are, and then there'll be some other blokes there. We're going to sort the deal out, and then you drive us back. Does make me wonder, is that why they still protest their innocence? Because they lured them there, they got them there, maybe they thought a genuine deal was going down, maybe they didn't, maybe they thought, okay, we're going to lure them to their deaths. These people want them gone, no problem at all, we'll get them down there, we'll lure them down there. Maybe even there was some element of truth in the cocaine deal. Maybe there was some sort of element of truth. And Steele and Wombs lured them down there, but there's a mystery third party already waiting. Now, I'm sure some people will say, well, maybe he's simply referring to Craig Rolfe and Tony Tucker. But that is not the way that I'm reading this. Not the way I'm reading this at all. I'm going to meet Pat at the halfway house. Then we're going to come over to where you are. There'll be some other blokes there. Then we're going to do the deal. Also remember that even if you look at the official version of events, there was a third party. There were other individuals involved in this whole scheme. The person who was going to cut up the coke. The person who was supposed to sell it for them. There are many people lurking in the shadows of this case. Let's not forget that. Even the official version of events does not simply revolve around Steele, Wombs, Nichols, Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. There were other people involved in the background. The hiring of the submachine gun. The cutting of the coke, the selling of the coke. Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were expecting money from an outside individual. There were other people who were aware of what was going on. And then factor in this discussion regarding a second Range Rover. The statement from Raymond Wright, who described a Range Rover, which he thought may have been green in colour, which had rear light guards, and a person sitting in the rear wearing a fawn-coloured upper top, or upper garment. Factor all of those things in to what Nichols has just said there. I don't simply believe that he's talking about Tucker and Rolfe here when he says, we're going to go to where you are and there's going to be some other blokes there and we're going to do the deal. I do wonder if this is a mystery third party. Anyway, let's continue on. So Mick said to me, all I've got to do is drop them off and then drive away, he said, park up somewhere and we'll ring you up to come and pick us up. We'll get in the car and we'll go. He says, is that all right? And I said, oh, I mean, we're driving down the bloody A12 now. He's drove off, hasn't he? Is that in Mickey's Hilux? Yeah, Mickey's Hilux. I mean, he hasn't asked me, we're going along now, aren't we? I said, all right, I suppose. He said, don't worry, I'll look after you. And I thought, blimey, if I had £1 for every time he'd said that, I wouldn't have to work. Anyway, so we went to the halfway house. He said, wait here until they turn up, so we know they've turned up and they've not let us down. So then Jack's in the car with me. In what car, Darren? In this Passat. Me and Jack's got in this Passat. Jack drove it down. Jack said, it's full of petrol. I said, yeah. Jack then said, right, here they are. They pulled up in the Range Rover, right? And did you see who was in the Range Rover, Darren? I didn't see nothing, just see a Range Rover. Jack said, here they are, right, off you go. So I pulled out of the halfway house, I think. I had to go up the slip road, down the other side, onto the A127. So now we move forward ever so slightly to discuss where Darren Nichols dropped Jack Wombs off, and he states the following here. The A130, that's right, we took that road and it wasn't far up there really, no more than a sort of mile down the bottom of the hill that I dropped him, on the left hand side of the road. He got out of the car and he had a bag with him. I mean, I just thought it was money, What sort of bag would it be, Darren? I can't honestly remember because he was wearing overalls. I remember he was wearing overalls, I remember that. Do you know what colour the overalls were? Blue, dark colour. I've not got it in my mind. He said, right, I've got your mobile number, he said. Was it like a small bag? like an average everyday bag, like a toiletry bag or a rucksack? No. It was more of a, like a carpenter's greenie bag sort of thing. It was quite a normal one, I mean, it wasn't your average bag. He said he had other things in his arms, like a coat and some other bits sort of thing. Like a handful of bits, nothing in particular, I thought, well, it's cold, I dropped him off and he said, you be back here when we phone you. And he said, come back here, pull up, and we'll jump in and off we go. Who did he mean by we? Well, Mick was going to be coming to the deal with him, like the others, in a Range Rover. Yeah. So I said, great, okay, fine. How long will you be? He said, oh, as soon as they turn up, will be 5 minutes, he said. The others will be waiting. Like, meaning there's other people there already. So I said, okay then. So off I went. Only went off down the road to a pub to turn round. Okay, so I'm just going to stop here because, again, this is, to me at least, incredibly important. So he said there, so I said, yeah, great, fine, how long do you reckon you'll be? And he said, oh no, as soon as they turn up, will be 5 minutes, he said, the others will be waiting. Like, meaning there's some other people there already. So, quite clearly there, in Darren Nicholls' earliest police interviews, he mentions a third-party involvement. Now, a certain section of people will have you believe that Darren Nicholls is telling the gospel truth. Yet they'll conveniently not tell you that Darren Nicholls has included, off his own back, a third party. And ask yourselves, what possible upside is there for Darren Nicholls to be lying about that? There isn't any, is there? His job in the interview room is to throw Jack and Mick under the bus. There's no reason here for Darren Nicholls to be lying about a third party involvement. But he clearly states there, others will be waiting. Others are already down the lane. So then back to the money. The money missing from 49 Gordon Road. If there is some truth in what Lizzie Fletcher states, and Pat Tate was missing a certain quantity of money, that can be explained in one of two ways. Either Michael Steele created this ruse that he was going across to Holland, I'm going over, pay me the money, I'm going over, Jack will show you where the lane is. They go out on the 5th to scope a lane out for the dry run. They realise that, okay, yeah, this will work. We'll go ahead with this the following evening. Jack then contacts them the next day. Mick's flying over tonight. The money's already been paid. Steele's pocketed that money and others were waiting down the lane. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that Tate took that money with him on the night he was murdered. There was a deal. There was a deal that was due to take place, but Tucker, Tate and Rolfe weren't aware of the third party. They weren't aware of the third party already down Workhouse Lane. Mick might be showing them a field, might be doing this, might be doing that. They've brought some money with them, possibly Tate's money along with Tucker's and Rolfe's. Does that explain the empty head bag? There's two ways of looking at this here. But it's interesting. I've always believed that there's a third party involvement. There's a section of individuals here that aren't accounted for. And was that simply Michael Steele and Jack Wome's place in all of this? You get them down the lane, you can pocket the money, we just want them gone. We just want them dead. Does that explain the missing money from 49 Gordon Road? Let me know some of your thoughts down in the comments section below.